Real quick, before this gets uploaded, I would like to point out that we filmed this on my dad's birthday, which was March 9th, but video is slow and so is our computer. So you're getting this on March 19th, 10 days later. I hate our computer.
Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey,
It's your president and your VP. And we're back with a very special edition of I Love This Movie. Special edition because it's a Q&A version. Haven't done one of those since I think Cape Fear, right?
yeah.
I've seen the movie, just watched it recently. He hasn't. It's also a special edition because it's my birthday today, guys. Your president is turning the big 4-0 today. So happy birthday to
Also,
me.
real quick, look at Dad's slick new haircut.
Okay, thanks for pointing that one out.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but yeah, he has a new haircut, guys.
Yeah, so, anyways, today's film is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is a 1975 film that came out November 19th, 1975. It was made for $3 to $4 million, and it made $163.3 million at the box office. Swept the Academy Awards. It holds a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. For those of you who kind of care about those things, we really don't. But in this case, I have to agree with them. It is widely considered to be one of the greatest, and in fact, it's a toss up at times depending on what kind of mood I'm in, on what's my favorite film. It's either this one or another one when he's up to it
I'll
that
be
we'll
up to
cover.
it soon if we want to cover it soon. It's Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, it's a difficult watch, but it's one of my favorite films for a lot of different reasons that we'll get into in the near future. We're going to talk about this one. So I'm rambling on here, but it's directed by Milos Forman, and it stars Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher in the main roles as R.P. McMurphy and Nurse Ratched, respectively.
Oh yeah, and don't forget about Brad Dourif.
Yes, it's Brad Dourif's film debut, as a matter of fact, as the
Nice.
stuttering, insecure Billy Bibbit, which I'll get into in a little bit later. And it's also Christopher Lloyd's film debut, as he plays his Max Tabor in the film. And I do believe it's also Danny DeVito's film debut. I could be wrong about that, but
Actually, he
I
was in
think
the
it
TV
is.
show Taxi before.
Yeah, but
One
this
Flew Over the
we're
Cuckoo's
talking
Nest.
film,
So
VP. We're not
I
talking
do.
television. We're talking film.
If you're talking about on-screen debut, like film on-screen debut, it probably is, but he was in Taxi before.
So, anyways, let's get right into the story here. Jack Nicholson, of course, is the iconic Randall P. McMurphy, and this, I guess, could sort of count towards March of the Irish, but it's a little borderline if we want to include it or not, because McMurphy is a Irish name, but it could also be considered a Scottish name. I'm not sure. They don't really go into specifics as to his origin. But anyways, R.P. McMurphy is a petty criminal. Let's just call him what he is. He's basically a petty criminal, kind of a wise guy, kind of a street hustler type of character. That really probably does just need to serve his time out and on the work farm, as it turns out. What happens to him in the end? But anyways, he fakes being a little funny, if you will, a little cuckoo, to get out of a work detail at the jail or the work farm that he's at. And so he's sent to the Oregon State Mental Institution for the Criminally Insane, because it takes place in the Portland, Oregon region.
Oh no.
Yeah. So anyways, he comes across a whole cast of characters, and these guys are actually, if you look at it from an objective point of view, guys, they're some of the saddest, most pathetic people in the world. But they're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with them mentally, for the most part. Most of these guys, especially Okay, let's talk about Brad Dourif's character, Billy Bibbit, for a minute. This is a young kid. He's probably 25, 26 in the movie, maybe a little younger, maybe 20, maybe 21. But the fact is that
Ugh.
he's got a stutter. He's really under Nurse Ratchet's control throughout the whole film as you watch it, because Nurse Ratchet is a friend of Billy's mother. And Billy's mother has this psychological, emotional control over Billy. And all Billy really needs to do is just tell his mom, "Look, mom, I'm going out. I'm gonna go have a good time, and then I'm gonna get on with my life," kind of thing. That's all he really needs. There's nothing wrong with him mentally, other than he just needs to be out on his own and to, as Randall puts it, and he I can't really go into great detail, but he basically tells him, "Hey, man, you need to be chasing girls and just living life." Because he's a young man, sowing his wild oats, so to speak, type of thing.
He's still like in his prime.
Yeah, and another guy is just Harding. He's a sad case too, because there's nothing wrong with him mentally, other than he has an overbearing wife, and he just needs to basically tell her, "Look, shut up and let me be a man," basically. Not because the way he describes it, she just is emasculating him and not letting him feel like he's a man, and not letting him be fulfilled, so to speak.
Ugh.
It's not a case of where he needs to like beat her up or anything. It's just a case of where he just needs to be assertive and say, "Hey, I'm a man. Treat me like one." Not like a little boy type of scenario. And then there's Martini, who is just a giggling nut job, but he's portrayed by Danny DeVito, and I'm not sure how to make of him. Cheswick just needs to grow a spine, basically. Tabor is probably insane, actually. Christopher Lloyd's character is probably insane. In fact, he's one of the people they say is a chronic and was committed, because that's just the thing. The majority of the people that I was just talking about are people that just sign themselves in, VP. They could
Oh.
leave at any time. But this woman, Nurse Ratchet, has just such a emotional and mental manipulative control over them that they can't. And so it's up to Randall to buck the system, and he does so by hijacking their day bus and taking them out on a fishing trip. A male bonding experience, something that was like really helpful and beneficial to them, on a therapeutic level, as a matter of fact. So it just goes to show that their methods weren't really working. But with Randall coming in and saying, "Hey, let's watch the World Series," which, by the way, he gets rejected because they want to account for everybody on the ward. They put it to a vote, but only the 9 people that can talk and aren't mumbling and just lost in their own head kind of people, they're the ones that vote for it, right? But it includes the entire ward. Well, half of the world don't even know where they're at. So Nurse Ratched won again, but Randall one upped her by just sitting in front of the television and pretend calling the game. It's a pretty iconic moment. So all of this escalates, right, guys? Because he's been bucking the system, and at one point she basically has the ability to cut him loose and cut him back to the farm, but she doesn't, because she wants to control him. She wants to be the one to show that, hey, Randall, you can't win. And as a matter of fact, guys, he can't. It all boils down to this big thing where he's able to almost leave on his own, because he's actually in some serious trouble. Um, he convinces Mr. Turkle to let his girls in, and I can't really go into description as to what they are, but you guys who've watched this channel before probably already know. So
Oh.
they're those types of women, and he gets them into the ward with them, and they bring in some alcohol and whatnot. It's a good time, actually. You know, you're rooting for these guys, but in the back of your head, you're like, the nurse is going to come in at any moment, and that's exactly what happens. Now, Billy, this whole time, okay, he had developed a crush on one of the girls who had actually been out on the fishing trip with him, and he tells Randall, "Hey, you know, you're about to leave, right? Is she going with him?" And he's kind of hinting around. And so Randall, you know, he's not dumb. He understands what's going on. So he puts them together and they go and they have a nice night together. We'll just say that. And uh, he gets caught. Okay, the next morning happens. Everybody is already asleep. The nurses come in. Randall actually has a chance to leave, guys, and this is what's pretty heartbreaking. He has a chance to leave. But Billy is caught, okay? And Nurse Ratched says, "Aren't you ashamed of what you've done?" And he basically tells her, "Well, no, I'm not ashamed, you know, because that's all he really needed in the first place was that." And then she says to this heartbreaking line, guys. She says, "What would your mother think of you at a time like this?" Now, if you've been paying attention and you've been watching the film, you know that this is a devastating moment. It obliterates Billy, okay, emotionally and physically and mentally, to the point to where he's hitting himself in a region that I can't describe.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. And then, and then, he runs into the nurse's station and he cuts himself. And I can't go into detail either because YouTube will take this video down if you go into detail as to what happens next. But needless to say that Billy is no more. We'll just say that. And Nurse Ratched blames Randall. Now, what do you think happens then, guys? Well, Randall, he snaps. He chokes the ever loving life out of her. Okay? And I have to just say it like that because that's the way it is. That's exactly what he did. He did that. So, in the end, she wins, though, because he's subdued and then he gets a lobotomy. I can't put it any more bluntly than that, but it's a sad scene because it's one of the saddest scenes in film history because actually throughout this whole thing he had been building up this tall Native American guy named the Chief, and he built him up to the enough to where this guy was confident enough with him to speak because he had led the people to believe that he was deaf and mute, but he really wasn't. It was all a trick on his end. Anyways, they were going to escape together. And see, earlier in the movie, he had bet that he could lift this like 400-pound water fountain thing. Randall did, but he couldn't. But the Chief could. Okay? Because they had speculated at first that he had actually gotten away, and the Chief overheard that. But then he was brought in, and he turned him over, and he saw the look in his eyes, and he just knew. He also knew that Randall would not want to live that way. So, in a scene similar to something out of Old Yeller, or of Mice and Men, in fact,
Oh no.
he takes a pillow and he does what you think would happen next so that Randall doesn't have to suffer anymore. It's a heartbreaking scene. But it's a scene of redemption because he then grabs that fountain, that 400-pound fountain that people thought couldn't be moved, and he launches it out, and he escapes. And that's the end of the film.
Hmm.
So, what did you think of my description of one of the greatest films of all time?
I think I'd have to watch it later.
It is definitely a 5 out of 5, guys. You can find it on Tubi, among other streaming services. I found it on Tubi myself. It's available on Blu ray, VHS, DVD. a number of physical media formats. It's basically available everywhere. It's also for the record, it is based off of a book by the title of the same name, and the author's name is Ken Kesey. You can find that book, I'm sure, on Amazon, as well as your local library, Barnes and Noble, all kinds of other places to find it. Read it, watch the film. It is a great thing. I can't say enough great things about it. But of course, as always, if you have seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and you think that it is the worst film of all time, well, the majority of people in the world would beg to disagree with you because it's considered a classic. And you need to rewatch it, and then you probably would change your mind. But having said all that, tune in next time, guys, where it's the start of March of the Irish. And it's going to be the Boondock Saints that's on tap first. And we've also got some other
Leprechaun
films,
Returns.
Leprechaun Returns, as well as a number of other films in the works for you guys. But as always, happy birthday to me today. And there's just one thing left to say, and that is peace and love from Denny and Son. Bye.